Welcome you all. Today we are going to talk about stages in the production of speech. This topic is from the contents Phonetics and English Phonology, English Code 203. This is our lecture 5 and today we are going to talk about the 4 stages in this lecture. Number 1, that is initiation. Number 2, that is phonation. Number 3, that is oral nasal process. And number 4, that is articulation. So without a further ado, let's get started on today's topic. Before those 4 stages in the production of speech, there is prerequisites. And according to Bellington 1994, that the production of speech sounds starts in the brain. After the creation of the message and the lexicogrammatical structure in our mind, we need a representation of the sound sequence and a number of commands which will be executed by our speech organs to produce the utterance. So we need a phonetic plan and a motor plan. So before the production of the physical production of speech sounds, there are the number of commands given by brain to the speech organs. After this mental operations, we come to the physical production of speech sounds. Speech then is produced by an air stream from the lungs which goes through the trachea and the oral and nasal activities. It involves 4 stages. So our motive to learn these 4 stages, it has become there in our lecture. Number 1, that is initiation. Number 2, phonation. Number 3, oral nasal process and articulation. Here we are going to talk about the first stage, and that is initiation, or we may call it respiratory stage. The initiation process is the movement when the air is expelled from the lungs. In English, speech sounds are the result of a pulmonic aggressive air stream. So when we talk about the respiratory stage or initiation stage, it occurs from the lungs, and that occurrence we may call it a pulmonic aggressive air stream, or the air is actually expelled from the lungs. And you see that air is expelled from lungs to trachea or towards the larynx. Here we are going to talk about second stage, and that is phonation. The phonation process occurs at the larynx. The larynx has 2 horizontal folds of tissue in the passage of air. They are the vocal folds. The gap between these folds is called the glottis. And when we are talking about this glottis, it has its importance because there happens the occurrence of sound. So here it is open glottis, and how when we say it is closed glottis. The glottis can be closed, then no air can pass, or it can have a narrow opening which can make the vocal folds vibrate, producing the voiced sounds. Finally, it can be wide open as a normal breathing, and thus the vibration of the vocal folds is reduced, producing the voiceless sounds. So phonation, this is the second step, and there the passage between that vocal folds is known as glottis, and there happens the sounds, especially the production of voiced or voiceless sounds occurs at this stage. Here we are going to talk about stage number 3, and that is oronasal. After it has gone through the larynx and the pharynx, the air can go into the nasal or the oral cavity. The velum is the part responsible for that selection. Through the process, we can differentiate between the nasal consonants ma, na, nga, and other sounds. If you look at there into this picture, you see this is actually the velum, and this becomes the cause whether the sound is going to be oral or nasal. So if we are talking about the nasal sounds like ma, na, nga are produced when velum it closes the passage, this mouth passage, and air or sound comes out of this nasal trachea. So this stage is known as oronasal stage. Here we are going to talk about this fourth stage, and that is known as articulation. It takes place in the mouth and it is a process through which we can differentiate most speech sounds. And if we look at this picture, vocal folds we already have talked about, and larynx, this was actually the second stage, and then there was pharynx, or we were talking about the velum, and this dangly mass is known as uvula, and this is velum, and this hard palate is known as palate. This is tongue, and this is alveolar ridge. So, and this is actually the nasal tract. So there happens the articulation, mean to say the voice or voiceless sounds which are coming from this vocal cord, they are been produced by the articulators. And what are those organs of speech that are involved in that articulation? It takes place in the mouth and it is process through which we can differentiate most speech sounds. We may say the articulators which can be active or passive articulators. Active articulators are upper and lower lips, upper and lower teeth, tongue, tip, blade, front, back. These are actually the parts of tongue. So these are known as active articulators. Here are the passive articulators like roof of the mouth, alveolar ridge, palate, and velum. These are known as passive articulators. These are passive because their involvement while there is the production of sound is less than the active articulators. They become passive at the production of speech sounds. Thanks for attention. Thank you very much. Hopefully this would have been very helping for all of you.